Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday, El Show Sin Fronteras. This is a special show. This is our 50th episode of El Show Sin Fronteras. We've been doing this for 50 episodes. You guys have been here with me on Tuesday mornings in English, on Thursday mornings in Spanish, on all the social media platforms. You've brought me your comments, your opinions, your questions. It's been a really great project. We're going to keep going with it. We're going to be expanding it. We never, ever run out of things to talk about. That's for sure. So thanks for being here with me, for being part of this project. Much more to come. As you know, Tuesday mornings, we're here in English. We talk about the news of the week, and I give you my perspective as an immigration lawyer on the ground about what all these headlines mean, what all these videos mean that you're seeing, what's actually happening, how to interpret a lot of this stuff. Then we get to your specific case questions, and we always wrap with an action tip because part of what can be challenging in times like these is knowing how to become involved other than the typical stuff, right? We know we need to register to vote. We know we need to vote. We know we need to work with our legislators and lawmakers and let them know our opinions. We know we need to rally and protest. What else is there? There's like a million things. And so that's part of what we're talking about too in this show is ways to build civic engagement and support of the immigrant community that are not, regular and typical ways. They're the small ways that you weave throughout your day-to-day life, your support and your civic involvement. So that's another part of why we're here and what we're doing. But with all that being said, one more reminder, you guys know I'm Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. The law firm is Lincoln-Goldfinch Law. We do family immigration. We help reunite immigrant families, keep immigrant families together. That's what we're all about. And because immigration law is federal, we can represent clients in all 50 United States. We are a virtual law firm, so we do have in-office services in Austin, Texas, but we can also help people all over the 50 United States and the globe, and we do. We also do detained cases. So when people get picked up and you have family members who have been picked up, feel free to reach out. We are continuing our free consultations. What we have determined that the immigrant community needs more than anything else is education, information, right? Information is power. So because of that, we've developed safety planning packets that are a free resource for the community. You can find those at abogadakate.com/safety. That has our safety planning packet that's free for download. Share it wherever you want. And we are continuing to do free consultations for immigrants who are eligible for services. So if you know somebody who needs some support, feel free to send them our way. We would be more than happy to help them. I want to tell you guys about a rally that I went to over the weekend. It was put on by Indivisible, which is a really great organization in Round Rock, Texas, right across the street from Round Rock Donuts. So I couldn't help myself. I might have gotten a dozen Round Rock Donuts. They're so delicious. But the rally was great. It was a rally specifically about ICE enforcement actions and standing up against ICE enforcement actions. So what's nice about these events, of course, is the camaraderie and feeling like you're finding like-minded people. But what was really special about this event were the speakers. So the woman who spoke before me, if you follow me on social, you might have seen her video. Her name is Fatima. She's Iranian. Her husband is a U.S. citizen. She's not my client. I met her at the rally. She has a 2-year-old, and 12 days after the birth of her second child this summer, she was detained because some traffic infraction. I don't recall right at this moment, but like taillight situation. 12 days after a C-section, they put her in Pearsall. They assigned her to the top bunk. Like she couldn't even climb to the bunk. She started developing an infection, so she wasn't even able to urinate, and she was feeling really bad. They would not give her medical care, even though the nurse on site said, this is an infection post C-section, this is an emergency. They were not giving her an appointment. I mean, it was just her baby, 12 days old, was having trouble with switching to formula because the baby had been breastfeeding. I mean, it was just one of those stories that boggles the mind. This woman has no criminal history, right? A traffic infraction, 12-day post giving birth via surgery. I mean, it was anyway, it's so helpful, I think, for people to come and tell these stories, because otherwise there are so many people out there who still think that Trump is going after the worst of the worst, right? The criminals, Like that's still a narrative out there that's working on some folks. Another example is a client of mine who participated in the rally through a voice memo. So the wife of another Iranian person, a man who's been here since he was a baby, no criminal history, all of his family are U.S. citizens. He was also picked up and has been detained for several months. This is a business owner who employs 30 people. I think the thing that is noteworthy about his case is that I don't know how he voted actually, but his wife and some of the family friends are Trump supporters. And they all thought when they heard Trump talking about going after the rapists and the criminals, they all were supportive of these efforts. They were like, yeah, that's great. This is going to make our country safer. Never thinking that in Trump's mind and Stephen Miller's mind, that means essentially brown people. It means there's a lot of Vietnamese people who have been here for decades who have been detained without criminal history, a lot of Iranian people, of course, just, people from all over the globe, right? Many people of color who have no criminal history are being detained. And so my message at this rally was and is that we are winning this battle in the court of public opinion. We, those of us who love immigrants. Trump's approval rating is down 11 points per Reuters in August. So down to 43%. The American public is seeing all of these videos of these horrific detentions. They're hearing the stories of these people who have been detained, and the tables are starting to turn, right? We are not okay with this as a general public. Like if you follow me, you're watching this video, you've probably been in this camp with me for a while. Like, we know, right? But there are the people who don't, pay close attention to the media. They're living their lives. They're taking their kids to school. They're, just trying to get medical checkups and pay the bills, right? There are a lot of folks out there who are just struggling to get through the day to day, and they're not paying close attention to what's happening politically. But all of these stories are starting to seep through, right, into the sort of general population, and people are waking up and going, this is not okay with me. So that's my sort of big takeaway right now. And that's my, what's bringing me a lot of comfort is the messages that I'm getting on social media from people who are like, I was okay with this in the beginning, but actually I'm not okay with this anymore. And it can be a natural instinct to be like, how are you okay with this in the beginning? And then be mad about that or be judgy about that. That's not the way to react and respond. The way to react and respond, somebody starts saying to you, this isn't what I thought would happen. I was okay with it before, and now I'm not okay. Yes, correct. This is not okay. Come on over here. Let me teach you. Let me tell you. Let me welcome you in. Let's be together on this side, on the right side of history. So with all that being said, that's rally information. Go ahead and start putting your questions, your comments in, and I'll get to them. I'm going to get to the news of the week first. So you might have heard over the weekend, this is a good news. A federal judge, I'm blanking on her name right now. It's such an amazing name. I'll try and come up with this. Actually, maybe I have it here in my social media because I don't want to not name her. She's so great. Sparkle. Yeah, what's her name? Sparkle Suknanen. Did I say that right? Suknanen. Sparkle Suknanen is this federal judge who over the weekend, okay, this is another one of these things. This is crazy. Okay, so the unaccompanied migrant kids are children who they come here alone. They don't have a parent, and they could be infants, obviously up to 18, right? I worked with a lot of unaccompanied kids over the years. Many of them, 90% of them have relatives here in the United States. They've fled something dangerous in their country. They're coming here to reunite with a relative. And the Trump administration has gone after this group of children in various ways. They have taken away the funding for representation of these kids. They've made it harder for these kids to reunite with their relatives. They make it more dangerous for the relatives to step forward because they go after the relatives. I am on the board of an organization that has had a project called Reunite, where we specifically reunite these kids with their families. And that project has been going for years. We had to shut that project down because we had no funding. I mean, this is real on the ground. And so these are kiddos who are essentially in like a federal foster care system until they can be reunited with their relatives in the United States. And because the Trump administration revoked all their legal funding, these kids also are like kind of going at it alone in the legal system. Many of them qualify for protections to stay here, like special immigrant juvenile visas, asylum. Like there's lots of ways for these kids to stay here. Well, in the middle of the night, I mean, this is why you have to start thinking like, I wonder if they knew they were doing something wrong. In the middle of the night, on Labor Day weekend, on Sunday, the Trump administration loads hundreds of these children onto planes and like actually has them on the tarmac ready to take off to be deported. And I think it was the young senator, don't quote me on that. If it wasn't, I apologize to the people who actually did all the hard work of getting this middle of the night order done. But they filed a middle of the night petition to have the judge step in, which she did in the middle of the night. Judge Sparkle Suknanen woke herself up in the middle of the night and issued an order blocking those planes from taking off. And they did not take off, and those children all were taken off the plane. So great move from the federal court. Shameful move on the part of the Trump administration. Who deports hundreds of children in the middle of the night on a holiday weekend? What is wrong with you? If you are doing that, and like to all these people who work for these agencies, like if you're not the decision maker, but you are wearing a uniform and you are ushering these children onto a plane, quit your job already. Like no job is worth doing what you're doing, abusing human rights, becoming the worst of humanity. ICE agents, quit your job. I know morale is terrible. It's been reported on, and they're having a hard time hiring people because they're reaching out to teenagers to fill their ranks at ICE. Like if you work in ICE, if you work in CBP, and you're being asked to do things that don't sit right with you, quit. Go public. Seriously, quit your job. Do a video on social media. Be like, my name's Kate. I work for ICE. They wanted me to do these horrible things. I'm not doing it. I quit my job and now I don't have a job. Who wants to hire me? Guess what? That video would go viral and you would have thousands of job offers. Legit. Like, be brave. Do the thing. Step away. Okay. More good news of another federal court. A federal judge struck down Trump's expanded fast-track deportation. So this is the where in the courthouses where cases are getting dismissed and they're applying expedited removal against people who have been here longer than 2 years. A federal judge stepped in and said, you can't do that, which is great, especially because it's sort of complicated. But the statute, when the statute for fast track deportations was written and signed into law by Bill Clinton, actually, it didn't allow for much review in the federal court system. So that was great. I wasn't expecting that. I was really happy to see that. More good news. Isn't this fun? We're having good news. A series of good news events. Alligator Alcatraz has been ordered to be shut down. So people were already sent out of it. They're closing that down. So that's great news. Okay, now we're moving into the bad news. All right. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service is the agency within the Department of Homeland Security that approves work permits, green cards, citizenship cases. They have a new director who is more enforcement-minded, appointed by Trump. They have issued a series of memos that are threatening and scary sounding. I think a lot of it is empty threats, and a lot of it will not be upheld in federal court. So I do caution people from like too much alarmism with the news coming out of USCIS, because they can't do a lot of what they say they're going to do. A lot of it's just, whether they say like more bark than bite. But one thing they have said that they are initiating is neighborhood checks for citizenship applicants. Y'all. And so people who are applying for naturalization, they're saying that they could go question their neighbors and their colleagues at work and like make sure that they're a good person. This violates privacy, of course. So if anybody actually has USCIS go out and interview your neighbors and your colleagues, please talk to a lawyer about it. I don't actually think that this is going to happen like on a large scale. They don't have the resources to do that. My guess is they're going to do it in a handful of cases where they have suspicion that the person has committed fraud on their application. I do think that everybody should have a lawyer in citizenship applications. That hasn't always been the case. Like for years, I've said, look, if you've got clean case, green card for 5 years, fluent in English, no criminal history, no back taxes, no long trips out of the United States, no child support owed, clean case, you don't necessarily need a lawyer. Now, that is not true. I think everybody who's going through any immigration process needs a lawyer. You need a lawyer with you at the interview, a lawyer with you to prepare for the interview, make sure nothing's wrong with your paperwork, nothing's missing, no delays, like that. But anyway, they're supposedly going to start these neighborhood checks, and I think that they are not legal. So I think that people who do suffer these neighborhood checks should sue. We have proposed caps on F1 student visas, 4 years max, because right now student visas can continue as long as the person is studying full time. That's a stupid rule. Like, it's so stupid. What if somebody graduates and they want to go to master's? What if they're taking what if they have a triple major and they take 5 years to graduate? Like, why on earth would you limit that? Dumb. Hasn't happened yet, but another dumb idea. DHS has begun flagging anti-American ideology in immigration applications, which is actually the opposite of what the truth is. So they're calling anti-American ideology people who are protesting, complaining about government action, engaging in like pro-Palestine protests. I would argue that all of that stuff is very American, actually, but they're calling it anti-American. DHS secretary accused CBS of editing her interview. Who cares? I don't really like most of the news that comes from Christina. I'm like, oh, we're painting the wall black. Okay, good for you, Christina. Nobody cares. We're not paying attention to you. There's so much news here, but the one I will focus on, the last one. Yeah, the last one is here in Texas. As you guys know, I'm in Austin, Texas. They are now opening Texas's version of the alligator Alcatraz, and they're calling it the Lone Star Lockup. Like, they're so gross. It's at Fort Bliss, which is an Army base, which will become the largest immigrant detention center in the United States at full capacity of 5,000 people. But the thing that's noteworthy about Fort Bliss is that it was the site of Japanese internment during World War II. So doesn't take any creativity of the imagination to connect those dots whatsoever. So gross. So gross. That's the news roundup. In summary, the courts are doing some good things. The Trump administration is doing only awful things. There's your news summary of the week. All right, let's get to your questions. Adelita in Instagram. Okay, this is in Spanish. I'll repeat it in English. Si se va a corte con visa T en proceso, ¿no deportan? Normalmente no, porque la visa T se mueve rápido, como entre 1 año y medio, y la corte tarda más tiempo normalmente. A veces los jueces dicen que hay que aplicar para algo diferente que está bajo la jurisdicción del juez, por ejemplo, asilo. Pero eso depende en el juez y también puede pedir a inmigración que procesen el caso rápido. So no debe ser deportado durante la espera de la visa T. This is a question from somebody who's in court. They also have a T visa pending, which is a trafficking visa. The T visa is under the jurisdiction of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, not the judge. So sometimes when you have something before USCIS, the judge will say, you've got to give me an application under my control, or I'm going to order you removed. That's a pretty harsh and severe response from a judge, but of course we have some judges who do treat people that way. There are a few things you can do. You can apply for other things that you might qualify for that the judge does have jurisdiction over, like asylum, for example. You can also have the prosecutor's office ask for a quicker adjudication of the T visa, so you can have that case move forward more quickly. So there's things you can do to not be deported if you're in court while the T visa is processing. Also, the T visas move relatively quickly, like in 18 months, and usually court cases take longer than that. Anyway. Oh, coffee's so good, isn't it? What would we do without coffee? Thank goodness we don't have to worry about that. TikTok, D. Delgado 2020. Trump is wanting info from Section 8 and telling us that it's for Americans only. Thoughts. Okay, so Section 8 housing is a form of, social welfare. It's like CHIP, SNAP, TANF, Section 8, like all of these are public welfare programs, right? And Section 8 is a housing program. Trump administration is going after the data within all of these programs and others. They're going after people's healthcare information. They're going after Western Union money. They're trying to like scrape data on immigrants everywhere that they can. And of course, they make claims that that immigrants are accessing public benefits. The truth is that immigrants don't qualify for Section 8 housing. Only U.S. citizens, or I think permanent residents who have had their green card for longer than 5 years might qualify for Section 8. I don't know for sure. I haven't researched it lately. But there's not rampant abuse in Section. I mean, imagine, how would somebody get Section 8 housing? This does not occur on a large scale. So my thoughts are that this is just another move by the Trump administration to try to convince the American public that immigrants are takers, which is not true. Immigrants are givers. The data shows this. The economic studies show this. Immigrants pay taxes. They pay property taxes, they pay sales taxes, they pay employment taxes, and many of them don't ever get to draw out of the Social Security system despite having paid in for many, many years. Immigrants are entrepreneurial. The studies have shown that immigrants actually create more jobs than they fill. So immigrants are not takers. Immigrants do not abuse the welfare system. They do not register to vote and vote unlawfully. There's not some big scheme on the part of immigrants to take government benefits and vote in elections. I can tell you this. I know them. I work with immigrants day in and day out, and I have for decades. Immigrants want to raise their children, love their families, work hard, and live a life of peace and follow the rules. That's who immigrants are. And so anytime you hear from Trump or Noem or Homan or Miller or any of these other wackadoos trying to tell you that immigrants are out there committing crime, taking from the American public, filling jobs, blah, 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 they are lying. They're lying to you. Like anecdotally, they're lying, but statistically, they are lying to you. But it's a powerful message that they send because fear is a strong motivator. But like I said before, people are starting to wake up. People are starting to go, wait a minute. I'm seeing on the social media and all of that the people that are getting detained are not actual criminals. That's right. People are waking up. So let's continue this message. Let's continue this conversation, this pro-immigrant conversation. We need to be louder than the other side. YouTube, Lions. Okay, this is another Spanish question. I will repeat it in English. Mis dos hijos con depresión, ¿eso ayudaría a aprobación, cancelación de deportación en corte reabierta por Trump? Corte de papá 2027. Hijos con depresión tienen que ir al psicólogo hasta el día de la corte para que se apruebe cancelación de deportación. Sí, eso sería de ayuda. Cualquier enfermedad o situación para los niños de él sería de ayuda para el caso, porque un parte de cancelación de remoción tiene que probar 10 años en los Estados Unidos, buen carácter moral y un hijo, esposa o padre nacido en los Estados Unidos o como con ciudadanía, que ellos van a sufrir el daño muy extremo si su papá sea deportado. Entonces, la carta del psicólogo, el testimonio del psicólogo, se serviría en la defensa del papá. Sí, eso sería de ayuda. So this is a question about a father who's in removal proceedings. His children are suffering from depression. And the question is that useful or relevant to dad's court case? My answer is yes, because when someone's in immigration proceedings and they've been here a long time, if they've been here for 10 years and they can prove that they have good moral character and that they have children, spouse, parents with citizenship or residency who would suffer, the language is exceptional and extremely unusual hardship, meaning there's something very unique about this family, these children, an illness, a cancer, mental illness, that is what the judges are going to look for. So yes, the depression that the children are going through is relevant and valid and actually helpful for dad's case. Another key point is that dad needs to make sure he's filed his taxes. So good moral character requires filing taxes every year. So immigrants who are undocumented should get an individual taxpayer identification number and file your taxes so you can show demonstrated history of paying your taxes. Melanie, will the military be determining people if deployed in our cities? Okay, great question, Melanie. And I did not touch on this news item, so let me do that now because this is a pretty big one. Because starting this week, the Trump administration has indicated that they are doing massive military operations in sanctuary locations. So we saw the takeover of Washington, D.C. It's going to look kind of like that, but in other sanctuary jurisdictions. So Chicago's on the list for sure. Seattle's been named. We don't really know where else, maybe Denver. The thing to look for are places where either the state leadership or the city leadership has publicly rejected any cooperation with ICE. So that could be where the mayor or the governor, like Pritzker, like are standing up to ICE. And it's a really double-edged sword because that's what we need. What we need are brave governors, states, brave legislatures in the states, like in, what was I talking to? I think it was Connecticut. Last week I was on a radio show and Connecticut had passed a law, sort of the opposite of what Texas did, right? Texas mandated sheriffs to cooperate with ICE. Connecticut legislature mandated that there was no cooperative agreements, right? Opposite. And so ICE came in and did a raid. So on the one hand, we really want states and cities to stand up and say, we're not doing that. We don't like the way you guys are operating and we're not going to cooperate with you. The unfortunate response from the Trump administration is that when a locality, a state or a locality stands up to them, they smack down hard. And that's what they're going to be doing this week. We're going to be seeing these like massive operations in sanctuary locations. Nobody knows exactly where, when, how many, what. But here's what I can say. If you are an immigrant living in a place that is loudly sanctuary, right? Think Los Angeles. Okay, that's an obvious example. But if your local leadership, your state leadership has come out against ICE, understand that ICE will probably retaliate in your area. And that means just as much that you need to have your safety planning done. You need to know what your rights are. Your kids need to know not to answer the door if the cops are knocking on the door. You need to have a relationship with a lawyer. You need to know where all your important documents are. All of that stuff needs to be on lockdown. But frankly, that's true for any immigrant because imagine, like if you're living here in Texas, where the sheriffs starting in January are going to be cooperating with ICE all over the state. Similarly, you are at risk than you are in a sanctuary place where ICE might be coming in and doing raids. I mean, it's a no-win situation. So, Melanie, your question is, what will the military involvement in these raids be? I don't know. We don't know. We'll just have to watch. I mean, it'll probably look like DC. It'll be gross. That much we know. TikTok, El Jose. I have 12 months waiting for an I-131 in a VAWA case. Is this normal? No. I would say usually the work permit and the travel permit should have come within 9 months. Did you get the work permit already and now you're just waiting on the travel permit? Is that the deal? But also, are you sure you want to travel? I'm not sure I would recommend travel except for emergency in a VAWA case. We should probably consult, unless you have a lawyer, ask your lawyer if this is really advisable. But to answer your question about processing times, no, it should come in under a year, I would say. Melanie, is it still safe to go to the consulate? Yeah, the consulates are one of the remaining safe places in the nation. And because ICE has revoked the memo that says that schools, churches, hospitals, domestic violence shelters are secure locations, right? There was a memo for decades that did not allow ICE enforcement actions in these sensitive locations. Trump revoked that in January. We have seen ICE go into these sensitive locations. So there are no safe places except for embassies and consulates of other nations in the United States. That's because their property is the territory of their country legally. So sometimes, like, the Mexican consulate can be the best place to go to an event because ICE isn't going to conduct an action on Mexican soil, right? So great question, Melanie. Great questions from everybody. Keep them coming. Charlemagne and Instagram. This is a big one. Big sigh. Why does the Trump administration care so little about the U.S. Constitution? Because Trump wants to be a dictator, because Trump is authoritarian. Trump wants power, control, and money for himself and billionaires. This is about a ruling class of people taking over and controlling everybody else. That's what they are after. And the Constitution constrains that. The Constitution is the document that set out the framework of protection against authoritarianism in our government. It was very well thought out from experience. And it set up our system of checks and balances and shared power between the branches of the government. And Trump doesn't like that. He doesn't want to share his power. He doesn't want the Supreme Court telling him what to do. He doesn't want Congress telling him what to do. He wants to do whatever he wants to do and have everybody else get out of his way. That's why. That's why. Okay. My sibling applied for asylum, but has been detained for months and is struggling mentally. I'm so sorry. How can we request their release or expedited hearing? Detained cases should move relatively quickly. Detained cases should not take more than 6 months. So I wonder how many months your sibling has been detained. There isn't really a way to expedite a hearing for someone who's detained unless it's like on the wrong docket. If it's on the non-detained docket and somehow there was a mistake, you can move to get it on the detained docket. But often people who are detained and losing hope end up seeking voluntary departure, leaving. That's what's happening for a lot of people who are detained and giving up hope as they're going home. That's what I'm seeing. And it's really hard. It's really hard to see that happen when you've got somebody who's got a good case and you want to fight for them and there's all this stuff that you can do and they're just like, I can't take it. I can't take another day. And they just want to go home. It's really hard. But I understand it. I mean, I understand it. So we should consult. If you don't have a lawyer for your sibling, definitely reach out to us. Hopefully you do. Somebody seeking asylum and detention 1,000,000% needs a lawyer, right? That's the most vulnerable person. So hopefully you do have a lawyer. But if you don't, feel free to reach out. I'm about to wrap up and give you your action tip of the week. So if you have any lingering, burning questions or comments, go ahead and post them. I am married to an American citizen, but we are separated due to economic and psychological abuse. My parents have an approved asylum case, but because I got married, I'm not included in their asylum. Well, guess what? You're eligible for VAWA. When you are married to a U.S. citizen and you're suffering cruelty in that marriage, you can apply for your green card without the knowledge or the support of your spouse. That is what VAWA does. It allows you to get your own green card and not even tell your spouse about it. You don't have to even be separated. You can be living in the same house. You can be separated. You can also be divorced, but you have to apply within 2 years of the divorce. And you don't have to have a police report. You just have to show cruelty, which can be verbal abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, controlling behavior, financial abuse, telling you when and where you can't work, like all that stuff, threatening you with immigration. Right now, if you know anybody who is in a relation, who is an immigrant, who is in a relationship with a green card holder or a citizen, and that green card holder or citizen has ever threatened immigration on your immigrant friend, that is a VAWA case, right? That is like red flag, should like alarm bells should go off. If the spouse is saying, I'm going to call ICE on you, you're going to get deported, You're not going to stay with the kids. You don't have any power. You're illegal, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff that they say, they all say it because this is a power imbalance and this is the number one way that they show it. That's a VAWA case, and the immigrant needs to consult with a lawyer and get their green card. So if you know anybody, if you are in this situation, or if you know anybody in this situation who's an immigrant married to an American, and there is immigration threats occurring, the immigrant can get their own green card. Big message. Okay, Melanie, this is the last comment. If the military is deployed, should undocumented people not go to work? I don't think that's a terrible idea, right? I think it's definitely a hunker down situation. If you know that the military is deployed in your city and they're roaming the streets, staying home is not a terrible idea where you are protected. Call a lawyer, find out what you can do. Be cautious and careful about when you go out. I really hesitate to tell people that because I don't want people to feel like they have to live their lives like that. And some things are really critical. Medical care is really critical. School, right? Sending your kids to school is so important. So I don't want anybody to be like, oh, I'm just not sending the kids to school this week because the military is here. I mean, these are very personal, very individualized decisions. And definitely you should consult with a lawyer before making these decisions. I think a lot of people who don't need to be afraid are afraid. Citizens born in the U.S., naturalized citizens, people with green card, people with conditional residency, people with DACA, people who have a valid work permit, folks who have legal status. Even though you hear stories of these crazy one-off situations where people are being detained, I get you, that does happen. But in general, if you have legal status, you don't need to stay home if the military is in your city. You just need to know what your rights are, what documents to carry, and how to protect yourself. So talk to a lawyer. Don't just watch the news and make your own decisions. Okay. All right. Thanks for being here today. Our 50th show, which sort of aligns with my bid for Texas House District 50. I announced this last week. I'm in House District 50 of the Texas legislature. James Tallarico is the representative. He is strongly considering a bid for statewide public office. Governor, senator, nobody really knows. And if he announces that he will be departing his position, I will be putting my hat in the ring as a candidate for House District 50. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. Please do keep following me because once he announces and I announce, we'll have work to do. Volunteers, donations, So stay tuned. Okay, here's your action tip of the week. I think that this one is a good one because I've been getting a lot of messages from people on social and in person who were kind of okay with what Trump was doing until they saw the reality of what Trump was doing. And now they're starting to waffle. So here's my message. And sometimes when I post about this online, people are they all rain hardness, right? On someone well, which I understand. Oh, serves you right. Your wife got detained and you voted for Trump. That kind of mentality, right? That's not who we are. That's not who we want to be. We want to be we want to be winners in the midterms, which means we need more people to vote on our side. So here's your action tip of the week. Find a Trump voter who is waffling, who is wait a minute, this isn't what I thought would happen. This isn't matching, right? Find that person in your life and send them a message of welcoming and warmth. Invite them over. Let's grow our ranks. That's your action tip of the week. Find a Trump waffler and get them over to your side. Okay, we can do that, right? We can do it. And I will see you guys on Thursday en Espanol for show number 51. Bye. Have a great rest of the week.